Welcome to our second live stream on the channel. Today, we're going to talk about Tesla's plan for 50% cost reduction, a deep dive with Ezer, and also another special guest you may have seen from last week. So a little bit of context, recently ARK Invest said that they believe that Tesla can actually reduce the cost by up to 50% over the next 5 years. So in this video, I have two special guests. I want to introduce you to Kelvin and Ezer. We all met Kelvin in last week's live stream. And now we've got Ezer. Both of them are long-term Tesla investors. I'll get them to introduce themselves briefly as well. And in this topic, we'll talk about what's their view, whether it makes sense, what challenges Tesla will face. Is there anything that Tesla isn't revealing to the world yet about their plans to reduce their costs? So click subscribe to stay updated to more live streams on Tesla. You can ask questions anytime in the chat. We can see you in the live stream chat. So first things first. Kelvin, say hi again and then over to Ezer to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm back for second time. So Darren invited me just to share some more of my opinions and to let everyone understand more on how Tesla is going to move forward. So I'm giving my opinions on that. So I hope to also hear from Ezer and also to get more feedback from the crowd so that we can make sure everyone understands how the company will be moving forward.
Thank you, Kelvin. Ezer, a few words from yourself. Well, welcome back to the channel. This is your first live stream, but you've been on a few videos before.
Yeah, that's true. My name is Ezer Rachaga. You can find me at Ezer Rachaga at Twitter. And I'm also a long-term Tesla investor and have been keeping up with the company all these years. Nice to chat with you again, Darren.
Happy to have both of you here. So we've got 15 people in the live stream now. Kevin from Florida says good morning to us. So good morning back to you, Kevin. So let us begin with this topic, right? Maybe get to hear your voice. So specifically what I think ARK Invest talk about, we will do a deep dive, but I just want to do a little bit of call outs. I just got back from Thailand recently. So while today our topic is going to be on like how Tesla is going to get this 50% cost reduction, which sounds pretty insane. I just want to give credit to the Tesla investors in Thailand that I met last week. So this t-shirt here that I'm wearing, Tesla to the moon, I'll just let you all see it. This is from Trader KP, one of the Tesla investors in Thailand. Thank you so much, Kap Kun Krap. Thank you for all the hospitality. I really enjoyed myself in Thailand. And actually, Kelvin and Ezer are both based in Malaysia. I'll be in Malaysia in the first week of May. And I do hope to see Tesla investors as well. Bunti, hello there. Ezer seemed to have dropped off. So when he comes back, I'll put him back in a live stream. But while we wait for Ezer, so this was actually a few of the Tesla investors that we met in Bangkok last week. You can see behind us in the background, that's the first Tesla Supercharger in Central World Mall, 9 stalls. Now, the cool thing about Tesla investors in Thailand, many of them are also Tesla owners because the price of a Model Y is about the same as a Toyota Camry in Thailand. So Tesla is launching soon in Malaysia. Hopefully, we'll see few Tesla owners in this call. Welcome back, Ezer. So I was just telling them about the t-shirt, about the Tesla investors I met in Thailand. So with that, let's dive into the topic at hand. I think before we talk about the specifics of the cost reduction, I want to just bring attention to Tesla's philosophy that they share in the Investor Day, which is question, delete, simplify, accelerate, and automate. So I wanted to hear both your views, Kelvin and Ezer. How do you feel about Tesla's philosophy here, the culture? Like how Kelvin, you were an engineer. Ezer, you were a software engineer. You led software companies as well. Is there anything unique about Tesla's approach here? Or this is quite common in the industry?
Well, Kelvin, you can go first.
Oh, okay. So I think in a lot of approaches, a lot of engineering approaches, I mean, we always strive to get the best out of it. Of course, based on certain constraints that we have, like cost and time. So the question part is the vital thing, right? You need to ask the correct question, and then you might get the correct answer, because if you do not ask the correct question, you might not get the answer that you want. So I think that's the main thing that we need to, I think that's the main thing that everyone has to learn in this sense. But well, I'm not well versed in how the Tesla internally really work, but from the approach that I see and the culture that they have, it's going on the right place, right? The efforts that they put in, and the second part where they say delete, I think that is quite I would say quite important as well, because as we tend to add things, we want to make things faster, want to make things cheaper and so on. Sometimes we tend to forget that actually we can remove things, and we remove features that are not relevant, so that there's no bloat. So I think in software it's the same as well, right? If you have features that are not being used or they do not add value, it would be more relevant, more appropriate that we do not just simply add things in. So if we cannot delete, then we need to simplify. So that's the next step, which I also totally agree. Right? We can also see in a lot of Tesla products where we can see. So that's the next step, which I also totally agree. Right? We can also see in a lot of. Sorry, there's an echo. Ezer.
I think there's an echo from your laptop. You got to mute.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to turn down the volume.
Yeah, it's got to be off. Okay.
Yeah. So then we definitely will try to simplify, right? From even you see from Tesla's perspective that we can see if it's possible to use casting to reduce parts, then you can't delete the back end of a car, but you can simplify the process. And then once you have identified that concept, then accelerate is definitely one thing that we should also go through. I mean, that's what Tesla is doing as well. So accelerating is where we try to shorten the time to market and also to manufacture. So you bringing the product to the market faster will definitely add more value, rather than you keep doing development processes and it's not making money, right? If you don't accelerate. And then in the end, of course, automation where automation is needed, not automation just for the sake of it. So there are things where humans may be more appropriate, but of course there are parts in the processes where it makes sense to automate, and then you have to go there. So it's always questioning. First, you need to always question the processes, right? What we have always what we have always done may not be the right thing forward. So I think that's what I have to add into this. So Ezer, what do you think?
I completely agree with everything you say. And I've been following Tesla for quite many years now, and I see that they have this, or at least I think it's basically direction from Elon Musk. He has trained the entire company to think from a first principles perspective. So it's not like, okay, this is how we've been doing things, and so let's continue doing this the way we do it, but do it slightly better. That's not how I see Tesla do things. I see that all the engineers are looking at things from very, very basic fundamental level. Like, what can I do completely different, right? That can make the greatest change. I think that's where you see the delete, because a lot of other manufacturing companies do not want to delete things. They want to improve on them, right? I've worked even in software, not just hardware. And hardware is even more scary or troublesome. Take, for example, Toyota, right? Once they have their design completely ready and tested, they lock it all down, right? They don't do any more changes to the model, all the way to the nuts and to the entire process, because they want to control how their product is and as little as possible maintenance for them and all of that. And they want to control all that. So for every model, let's say Toyota comes up with, they actually invented this process, which is they lock everything down, and then for the next 2 years until the next model is released, everything is done exactly the same. So you have the pros of not worrying about anything breaking down or anything you don't know that's going to happen. Whereas Tesla has completely changed everything. They're like, okay, every single day, any engineer in the plant, if you thought of something completely new, a completely different parts, or you want to completely, if you think you can remove a part and still make it work, you can immediately just try to implement that. No one's going to stop you. You can start doing like a prototype, and then if everything works out, you can start introducing it straight to the line, and then it's just going to go out to some cars, and if everything checks out, they're just going to introduce it to every car. So that's why if you look at Monroe, right, like 6 weeks later, he breaks down the same car and says like that. It's like 15 changes. This wasn't here, and that wire wasn't there. So it's like Tesla. I think maybe also through technology that makes this possible, because now you have the cloud, and Tesla can keep every single car. There's like a copy of every car they sell digitally stored on the cloud. So if you bring your car back, they know exactly what every part that is in your car, where it's produced, who puts what in, everything. So if something is wrong, they know the right parts to get for you. Because it might be the same model, same year, but there could be different parts in every car. So I think that's how Tesla look at things, and on a fundamental daily basis. And then I think they also have these phases. So you have like the first phase where they basically just in the dark, right? They're trying to build the first car, the Roadster, in the dark, like trying to put everything together. That's basically trying to make an electric car work. That's like the first like beta phase. And then when they start to produce the S and X, they have some sort of they understood what can be done, what cannot be done, and they start creating a process. And then they have the, I would say, like third gen, which is the Model 3 and Y. And they build completely different factories for them from the ground up, so that all the processes, and I don't know if many people realize this. I just read about it that Tesla actually are their own contractors. Do you know that, Darren?
They will reveal it I found out in Tesla Investor Day.
Yeah, I also like, I didn't know that. I thought they at least would subcontract the factory bill to someone else, right? But no, they actually, the contractors are it's a fully owned subsidy of Tesla. So every time their own, like even when they start building a factory, things could change and all of those things, and they can just get it done internally. So this is like the ultimate vertical integration. And this is what Tesla means when they say they want to control every aspect of the production, and why it's very hard for other companies to compete with them. So they don't just, I don't think they compete with everyone else when it comes to manufacturing. I think they only compete with themselves. They don't look at Toyota and what they're doing and then see what we can improve. No, they look at what they are doing and what else they can do. And so today, I think we are here to talk about the next gen, after Gen 3 and Gen 4. What are the things that they have introduced to us? And maybe we can speculate a little bit more. It's fun to it's fun to speculate. So I give it back to you to start on that.
It's been almost 2 weeks now since Tesla Investor Day. So the initial excitement or any hype that we have felt has mellowed down a little bit. We had time to think through, analyze, read through a lot of the Twitter conversations. And I think coming back to this whole idea that Tesla is going to reduce costs by up to 50%, that's their target. They had a 4-hour live stream, a lot was covered. Curious to hear from both of you. What's your current impression on this? Is it going to happen? Are you worried? Are you skeptical? Are you optimistic? Is Tesla lowballing here?
I don't think they're lowballing or being overly optimistic. I think it is a target that they set themselves, and I think it's achievable. Because if you look at currently, the last time I heard about their cost is about $38,000, right? Anywhere between $36,000 to $40,000, depending on the inflation time and all of that. So bring it down 50%, you're looking at an $18,000 car. And I don't think that's impossible. I mean, if I just did like some simple math myself, material costs, and the manufacturing, like how many work hours you need to put in, it's not an impossible task. So, but on the other hand, I think I see on the on the Twitter, a lot of Uber bulls might think that, oh, it's going to come tomorrow. But I think this is going to, the ramp up is just going to be just probably as slow as we see Berlin and Austin in a sense. The factory is going to come out faster because it's in Mexico. But you're going to see them roll out this new thing just as slowly as they did with the 3 and Y, because again, it is a completely different process, right? It's not like when they build the Model 3 in Shanghai, it's actually using the same process from Fremont. So as soon as they finish building the Shanghai factory, they already have all the equipment there and they can start rolling out the line. So now what I believe they want to do is maybe, let's say, another 2 months, 3 months for the permitting. And then Tom Zhu wants to build it in 9 months. So let's say everything comes, let's say 1 year, right? So starting from 1 year, they got to start to build the cars. And I think it's going to be a slow process then. Like maybe they're going to do like 100 a week, or, a few to test out, things like that. So, but once they perfected the process in Mexico, I believe, I know I wrote a tweet that says, I think they're going to start in China first, right? But now that I think about it and what Tom Zhu says, I think they're just going to experiment in Mexico first. And once they get the process already, they will bring it to China and everywhere else, I suppose. Kevin?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you have said as well. Regarding the RAM, I mean, we shouldn't expect it to be done overnight, right? So on a timeline basis, I would say, if it's very optimistically, it would be probably the first car will come out like end of 2024. That's very optimistically speaking. I mean, the processes that they have now is not totally scrappable, I would say, right? If you want to go to this new process, because from my experience, looking at the modular process, what is the main challenge is the assembly of the sub-assemblies together. So that's the main issue. I mean, sub-assemblies, what they have now can be easily replicable. Is the main challenge is to assemble those sub-assemblies to become a car. So you have to really totally throw the whole current assembly line method out of the window, because we are not going to do welding. That's probably not the first choice. Probably they may go to bolts, but that would probably not be that easy to automate, so that would be taking some time up. And then if they were to eliminate paint, then probably they can do welding. But that also has a risk, because you have your sub-assemblies and electronics all inside. So welding may damage those parts as well. So my speculation, after looking through what is currently available, they may actually go to adhesives, structural adhesives. So that may sound very sci-fi, right? To glue things together, but actually it has been done before. When you look at Lotus cars, they do use a lot of adhesives. So let's see how they're going to improve this process. And I think that's the main challenge only. For anything else to get supply chain up, to get the technology together, to especially to source materials, I think that's already Tesla's expertise. So I would say what would be very exciting is to see how they're going to put those sub-assemblies together.
I hear you.
That's mine.
As we talk about all of this, a lot of people criticize Tesla Investor Day for not revealing any product, like no product announcement, like no Gen 2, no Gen 3 vehicle. But I feel that actually Tesla did do product reveals, but that's not the product that people are thinking about. You remember how they always had to say they are working on a machine that builds the machine? And so if you think about the new production process, the new ways of Gigafactory, the new ways of building the components, the batteries, the cars, that is their product. They've always said that Gigafactories are their product, and they're getting better at making the product. They're getting better at scaling that. How do you see it? What's your take, Ezer?
Yes, exactly. I mean, that's the point I was trying to make earlier. Until Investor Day, I was thinking I mean, obviously, whatever you do inside the factory, the machinery, the layout, the machines that build the machines is all internally built by Tesla. I was surprised that they actually build everything from the outside also, right? So basically, it's completely bonkers if you think about it. So their factory is indeed their product. But I think specifically the question was geared towards what they're trying to sell, right? What kind of? I mean, they're trying to get Elon to spill the beans, so to speak, and I don't think I'm pretty sure they already have the entire model design, probably a long time before this, right? It's just about working out the process, the manufacturing process. That part might take longer, like because they need to source. Because if they're gonna be building this in 1 year's time, or at least start building this, don't you think they already have to have all the casting done, all the machines, all the equipment, all of those would have already been ordered, and and maybe some of them are already ready, right? So so basically the product is already there. They just don't want to tell you, and I think it's a good idea because we tend to, as a Tesla community, become sometimes overly optimistic. So normally, if they tell something too soon and we expect it too soon and it doesn't come, and then the stock will crash. So maybe Tesla have learned a lesson. And also there's this what's that word they call, like people might wait for the new product to buy. What's that?
So Dave Lee called it the Osborne effect. If they
Yes,
announce
Osborne, yeah,
Model 2 now,
sometimes.
you'll
Yeah.
hold back
So
Model 3, Model Y
yeah,
sales.
yeah, exactly. If I am not your typical rich guy, if I can barely afford a Model 3, and you tell me next year you have a $25,000 car, I'm gonna wait, right? And you
Right.
show me how it looks, and it looks stunning. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna wait for sure. So no, they're not going to reveal that until they probably have another day, product day, where they reveal it. And I think in and the more I think about it, the more the reason why they say next gen, and the more I think about it, they're actually referring to everything, all the product. They're going to be refreshing everything. I don't think it's just the next two products. I
Mhm.
believe everyone knows that one of those products will be the compact version of the 3 and Y, right? And that's a no-brainer. I probably I could bet anyone $5 on that. But other than that, I think we could be looking at a van. Remember,
Yeah.
I'm posting like, are they going to build this next gen using the Cybertruck, exoskeleton method using stainless steel? Because Tom Zhu did hint that paint is too expensive, right? So I'm,
Yeah.
I'm thinking like, but now I'm thinking, I just rewatched the whole thing just now, the investor day, and they actually the model that they put up, they actually include painting. So I'm thinking now, speculation time, right? I don't have any information on this. This is completely my speculation. I'm now thinking it could be that they have two products. One, the cyber van, which doesn't require paint, which they're gonna build it using the stainless steel and exoskeleton method. And the other one is just the compact, which is gonna be built like the Model Y and Model 3, and you do require paint, right? So the more I think about it, the less I'm convinced. I mean, the other way is that who knows? Like maybe they could be like lying about the paint in that presentation, or the presentation was done, in a different manner. But I would
Mm.
actually prefer to have a stainless steel car where they can just wrap it in factory, right? It will be the same process, like they say now they're changing the process to they are going to paint only the parts they require, right? Before they have to assemble the car, and then they put it all into a painting, and then they got to take out all the doors again to put in all the things, and it's a long process. But now they say they're just going to paint just the parts that needs to be painted. But what if that painting refers to wrapping? Okay, completely speculation here, right? But do
Mm.
you think it's possible? Like, could there be a version of the car where every part is wrapped and then they put it together?
I think so. I
Yeah, it's
believe so.
possible, right? And I'm thinking like it basically they have Tesla likes to delete things. So imagine if they deleted the entire painting process, uh, and then they save all that cost, and now they sell you a car which is stainless steel, and you can just buy that, or they can upsell you with all kinds of wraps, right? that you can just, and they charge you like 2,000, 3,000, even 5,000 more for like specialty wraps, right? And then their process will be just like kind of like painting, but now it's all machine wrap, using machines to wrap all the parts that requires wrapping. Could be even a faster process than painting. Now, Kevin is the engineer here, so maybe you know more about that wrapping thing. So I don't know, but is it easier, do you think, if a machine wrap than machine paint? Which do you think is an easier process?
They both processes have their challenges, right?
Mhm.
Actually, but if you were to say environmentally friendlier, then wrapping would be way more environmentally friendlier.
Mhm.
And I would say they currently wrapping in what we see in workshops are all very manual process, but
Mhm.
there's definitely a way to automate that. They can use vacuum wrap or something like that. So
Yeah,
you can have
exactly.
a
Like
part
they build
and
speaker boxes, right? Speaker boxes are all using machine vacuum wrap it. So like
yeah,
if you already have a car, if you take to someone, they have to do a lot of manual work because it's all the corners and to stick it in here, stick it in there. But imagine if it's from the factory. Every individual parts could be wrapped first, vacuum wrapped first, and then
mhm,
put together, right? So
yeah.
that's why I'm thinking that could be a possibility because they could make another $2,000-3,000 off the bat. Like this is pure margin, right? Uh,
But
and
welding would not be possible after that though.
yeah, they'll be bolting, I think, or maybe
Mm,
like you say, some sort of glue. I don't know.
mm. That's a
That
challenge, that's a
yeah,
challenge.
yeah.
So I'm curious to hear from both of you. There seems to be so many different things that comes into Tesla's cost reduction.
Hmm.
How, as a Tesla investor, would you see this from a milestone perspective? Like, would you expect a 10% cost reduction every 12 months? Curious to hear
No,
your thoughts.
I can't see that happening. Uh, because but I do see like this kind of massive cost reduction that requires a completely different process, right? Like you see phase one, phase two, like they call it Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, because it requires you to build a new factory and a completely different manufacturing processes. I have been into a lot of I look into a lot of manufacturing of different things, like even like TVs, right? Different panels of TV, different technology requires different way of doing things. And even take the newest QD OLED technology, right? The way it is put together is actually cheaper than the LG's WRGB OLED. Although the newer technology is also better in quality, right? It's better and it's cheaper. So I think this is what Tesla is trying to do, and they try to learn from. I mean, like just now what I said, like certain things they can change on the fly, on the line, right? Small things, but to make major changes, they will need a complete different phase. So every maybe several years, when they're going to build a whole new range of factories, which then they could trickle down to the old products, right? So in the next gen, I can see that okay, if you think about it in the whole presentation, they have basically broken down the cost. One, you have this factory cost, right? The machine that builds the machine. And they have told you how they are doing this. They are saving space, basically this three-dimensional space that is required. So it's a smaller factory that they need to build, and so they can build it faster, more efficiently, and because you need to what do you call that? In every product, the cost you need to include the factory cost over the next say 10 years, right? So if you can bring the cost of the factory down, that could save, I don't know, a few hundred or $1,000 per car. And then the second cost that I look at is material costs, right? How are they reducing all materials are actually quite expensive because you're talking about metals mostly here. Metal, silicons, silicon carbide and all that. And if you look at it, one of the major material costs that they're saving on is even just on the harness, just going to 48 volt. Um, if you look at the equation for current or wattage, that every equipment you have requires certain watt to operate, right? So watts is VA, volt times ampere. Ampere is a current, right? So if you go to 48 volt, you need much less current. And I believe the Tesla now requires something like 200 amps that's being pushed around the car, and that means that's a lot of copper, a lot of cable, and I think they were saying like even just from the Model S to the Model 3, they save like 17 kilograms of copper. And now going to 48 volt, I think you're going to save a ton more. So imagine you need much thinner wires because you're not pushing as much amp through it, much current, and so it doesn't heat up the resistance, right? Doesn't heat up the wire as much. You have a higher voltage. That's how they actually do high voltage transmission lines, like long distance also, right? They have like hundreds of thousands of volts, then they step down before it comes to your house. So similarly, going from 12 volt to 48 volt, your current requirement is 4 times less, and I would think like those resistance and all those things are like, I think they say something like 16x. So the heat, you might not even need a heat sink then, like they say they could they could reduce or even completely get rid of it. So imagine all of these are made from metal, from the copper wire to the heat sink, right? And the length of the cable, and all of these things are saving a lot of money. And also when you're building the smaller cars now, you also need a lot less. And remember, all this, like, you're talking about reduction in mass, right, per vehicle. So when you reduce the mass in a vehicle, guess what? You don't need that much battery. And the major cost still in a Tesla is the battery, right? So so they even reduce the cost of the powertrain, the motor, right? They say they can do it for less than 1,000 without using any neodymiums or all those stuff. I believe they are going to go into iron nitrate, something I researched on, like how do you do it without neodymium and all that. And I believe there's a company doing it also. I'm wondering if Tesla bought up their technology. Maybe we'll know that later. Basically, they're using some sort of iron nitrate material. They can do that cheaply. And if you look at this powertrain for $1,000, it's now pretty comparable to your ICE car's powertrain, right? It's cheaper actually, but for $1,000 it's actually cheaper. But then
than an engine,
cheaper than an engine, yes. And then the battery now is the major cost. Other than that, and because you are reducing weight in the car, you're also reducing the requirement for the batteries. So how many kilowatt hour of battery less that you require in this Gen 3, right? So we're talking about the factory, which is they need to amortize the cost. Now you're talking about material costs. And then the third major cost would be the manpower, right? So by figuring out how to design or build the car, the process, now they have this what they call it unboxing. Like they're gonna put the front part, like, okay, this group of machine or people are gonna just build the front part, and then this group of people are gonna build the back, and then you're on the left side, you're on the right side, and then you got the top and bottom. So now you could have it's basically, it's not like a one line anymore, right? It's like a microchip that can do several core, right? You can do 5 different calculations at one time. So basically now they have changed the factory line into non-linear. You can have different processors. In this case, the processors are just human beings and robots building completely different sides of the car. And then they just put it together like a Lego set at the end. And the beauty of that is that they actually test every section while they put it in, right? So every section is completely tested and they work completely well. And when they put it together, the debugging and all that is going to save so much time, human time and cost and all that. So now you're saving on the factory, and then you save on the materials, which also has an impact on the battery, and then you save on the what do you call that, the human labor. So I think that's how they are ultimately going to drive down the cost by 50%.
And once they do that in the future, Tesla bought when they're ready for industrial use, even more automation and cost savings, hopefully. Kelvin, are we missing anything else here in all this discussion? Any other
I think the human labor costs would not be that significantly saved, because you still need this to assemble those sub-assemblies, and those are relatively difficult to automate. So I would say the more significant savings will come from the use of space and also from the time. Because of the parallel processes.
Time is human labor, right? Isn't it?
No,
Like,
not really, because when you don't have parallel processors, there's a lot of downtime on the car actually.
yeah,
Because
exactly. But then the same number of people working, you're paying them per hour. So
no,
now,
but
basically,
the car itself is is spent on the production line way longer than the man hours, because you have
mm,
curing processes, you have paint processes, then you have other parts that are waiting for the time to assemble. So there's actually savings more than actually just man hours.
yeah, exactly. Basically, let's say you have 10,000 people working in a factory. Now, if those people have to wait around for the parts to get ready because it's a linear process, right? You're like you say, the time actually converts to man hours, because otherwise time doesn't cost any money other than electricity bill or whatever, right? Most of
No,
it is just man hours. Yeah,
the time it spends on the floor, let's say in the warehouse space, then that will be increased also, because you have you tend to, you know, you there is also, like, if you look at the manufacturing line, right, there are times where, let's say, the part is being done on the front part, but the back
mhm.
part is actually not being done anything at all. So that's actually cost as well, because you should be able to do something at the back at the same time.
But what's the cost?
That's
The
time,
time. I mean, what
right?
in terms of time, basically, yeah.
Because you're going to
I can
use,
see,
you're not
I can
using time to, you're not using that time to do something useful on that part of the vehicle.
which is labor cost, right? That means people standing around waiting for that parts. So that's my point. Like, you have
Nobody is
the
going to
same,
stand in the car manufacturing. No factory is going to allow people to stand around not doing stuff. And no, I'm not saying in that way. I'm not saying the labor costs will not be saved. There is, but not as significant as.
okay, let me give you an example, right?
Mm,
Using what I see on investment day. Now, if you have a linear line, right, you may have to have more, like, okay, assuming you want to produce a certain number of cars, you want to put out 1 million cars a year, right? So you're talking about how many cars will get out the factory door every minute, for example, right? So now, if you have a linear process, you may need many more lines because it takes longer for the car getting from point A to the completion. So you may have many more lines, which means you have to hire more people. But in this unboxing, what they call it, unboxing process, they have people working on different parts of the car. So you have one single line, but you have people working on different parts and already completely testing those parts. And then when they put them together, they go up. So each line actually moves faster, right? And therefore you need less line and actually less people, because imagine, like, one of the things they say is, like, sometimes you have a bug when you try to put everything together in a linear line, and then all it takes is one small bug to stop the entire line, right? So in this way, you actually, so when you do stop this line, you're actually causing everybody's downtime. So I actually worked in Motorola factory before, and this happens quite a lot actually. If just one small thing happen within the line, everything stops. So what Tesla is trying to do is, okay, we're not going to wait for you, right? We're not going to, and also if you look at their new process where they test every parts first, every section of the car when they put together, it's completely tested. So it's bug free. When they put it together, there's also less debugging. So I think ultimately when you talk about time, if it's given the total number of cars coming out of the factory is the exact same, then the cost of time is actually labor and probably electricity costs, right? If you're talking about the cost of that time, unless you're
no,
talking
you
about
see,
the cost of the time,
you
is
see.
less cars coming out of the line. And if it's
No,
less cars coming out,
no. I'm not saying about that time of less cars. I'm saying, you see, you have answered the question already, because you said that if it's a serial line, right, it's going to
yeah,
take more. The car is going to take longer time from one end to the other end,
there will be a
right?
lot of people waiting around when there's a bug. when there's a bug or like you say,
Yeah.
there's a
More or
delay.
less. I
There's a
mean,
lot of
if
everybody
there
on
is
the same line will be waiting around, right? And that's human cost. So what they want to do is they want to make
not really. I would disagree with that because no factory is going to say stop. Okay, everyone don't do anything. They will definitely stop it and then bring it out, and then they will continue unless it's a process problem. If it's a product problem, no
okay.
one's
Let's
going to stop the
go
line.
another angle. Let's go another angle. I do believe that if you add up the labor cost, it will come up to be quite a lot in producing the car. But let's table that, right? Let's table that for now. But there's another thing about doing this in parallel process, which they show, the saving the cost. And the reason why I say labor costs, why they save a lot of labor costs is because by unboxing it this way, right, you actually don't have to repeat a process twice. So before, you have to put everything together, send it to the paint shop, paint it, bring it out, deassemble the doors and all the things, and then only you can sneak the chairs and everything in through the openings, right? They show you in that video, right? How much man hours is that? So now you are actually taking each of those parts and sending up to either paint or wrap or whatever it is. And then when they all come back, all different section, right? Where I'm building the rear section, you're building that, and then they all come together only one time. And also, in this new process, they also actually cutting down on labor. Actually, a lot of this because now that they actually Gen 4, I think one of the biggest part of Gen 4 that people might not realize is cutting down on labor. They are when they try to do this too much automation on the Model 3, they have this what do you call that, factory hell or whatever, manufacturing hell or whatever they call it, and they have learned from that, and it's like robots can't do certain things, right? Like it can't go into the car, can't sneak in, how to put the wire. That's why if you see not yet, but that's why you see a large part of Gen 4 is about breaking down the process, right? Next gen, let's call it next gen, right? Is to break down the process where they can automate it more, right? Even in the video they show, like now, you can, because each segment is all open, right? Each segment, you don't put the whole thing together and then try to sneak the chair in. Now they're trying to put like things from the top in or from the bottom up or from this side like that. So each of these segments, a lot of it can be automated now. So
That's
essentially,
right.
yeah.
So I just want to hold both of you. I see both your points as well. So as what Ezer is calling out, it's saving space and overall manufacturing time. But what Kelvin also mentioned is that factory floor workers will not stay idle. Everyone will always be doing something when they are in the factory. So there's some nuances in the savings in there. But both your points, both of you bring up solid points here. So a question for both of you is, as Tesla embarks on this, as they build new factories, they test new manufacturing processes. As Harry mentioned in the chat, these cost savings will take some time to materialize. They're iterating it, like how they're ramping up 4680 battery cells. It is not going to be an overnight thing. What do you see as the biggest risk in Tesla's approach here? So I'll give you an example. Like a few years ago, Tesla said 4680 cells, you will ramp up max, but it's far from it.
Yeah, it's taking longer than usual.
But in this case, this is not a battery cell. This is making a car. They can't wait to make a car. Battery, you can always replace at a 2170, which they're doing now. What do you see as the biggest risk as Tesla launches the third gen platform?
You want to go first, Kevin?
Okay, sure. Now, like what I said just now, I mean, the new technology or the new challenge is that to put the sub-assemblies together, because there's a structural issue that we need to consider as we put smaller parts together. So that is the biggest risk I see.
I agree with Kevin there. Because if you look at the delay in Berlin and Austin, I think Tom Zhu basically, when he was asked that question, why Berlin and Austin took so much longer than Shanghai, because he says that even the structural pack, they had a problem putting it together, right? So even something that you might think is easy to do, but once you start putting it into a process, into the manufacturing floor, you might discover certain things that might not work that well as you imagine it in your head, right? So, and if you look at Berlin, it was delayed for I mean Austin. In Berlin, I think they started up with both lines, 2170 and 4680. In Austin, they actually thought they could just do everything 4680. That's why it got delayed a long time when they were delayed there, right? So I think Kevin is correct when they start going into this completely different. I won't even pinpoint to any one part because in real life you actually don't know where it's going to break down. So that's why initially I tweeted, I was a bit gung ho, big optimistic. I was thinking like, oh, they're not going to wait for Mexico, right? They're just going to go and like convert half of their Shanghai factory into producing the cheaper car because let's face it, they already reached a max they can sell at this current price for the 3 and Y, and they're already selling it very cheap, right? Like one of you is saying, like it's almost the same price as the Camry in Thailand. But of course, the Camry has a tax there, and you have EV better tax situation. But I don't see them able to really sell a lot more of the 3 and Y in Asia. So that's why I came up with the idea that I'm thinking that they may have to, launch this Gen 3 or at least a compact in half of the Chinese manufacturing or convert to half. But now I have second thoughts because as Tom Zhu said, maybe they need to really test out those things first, those processes first in Mexico. So these things might come a bit slower than we think actually. So I think that is where the risk is. And so if you ask about the risk to the company, in terms of stock value or those kind of things, we are looking for the next 2 years where we may not have this next gen. And how much lower can they go in 3 and Y before you eat into all your margins, right? So do they now have to produce less or expand much slower while they're waiting for the next gen? Or are they going to surprise us with I was originally correct, they're going to start in China first? Like, who knows, right? So I think that is where the risk is.
There's a short tangent
sorry.
There's a short tangent on this risk, and we'll come back to you, Kelvin. So like Harry's asking in the chat. So the panel thinks Model 3 and Y has reached market saturation. That's a big statement. So I have my view that I don't think Tesla has reached saturation in 3 and Y.
No, I didn't say market saturation. I said for this price.
There's still many countries Tesla hasn't launched yet. Like Thailand is just launched. One day they'll launch in many more countries. On top of that, the Inflation Reduction Act in the US is still playing out. So the 3 and Y demand will still carry on for some time. Mexico manufacturing will still be qualifying for the Inflation Reduction Act because it's North America manufacturing as well. So I still see growth in 3 and Y. On top of that, Tesla with Project Highland for the Model 3 and Juniper for the Y will continue improving these products. It's like iPhone. iPhone average selling price actually went up over the years, not down. Yet, the sales for iPhone still go up every year. Of course, it's a phone, it's a different price point. But think of the utility. Another thing I just want to chime in on Harry's point is, so Tesla just released FSD beta 11.3.1. Now, it's single stack right now, highway and also city streets. Elon has mentioned a few times, some of you may think it's hyperbole, but he feels that solving autonomy is going to be the single biggest asset value increase in history. So the total price of a 3 and Y, including software, FSD software, could be significantly higher. So we don't see the hardware sales, but the software sales that these platforms provide. So I think there's a broader definition of what market saturation means for even these 3 and Y.
Let me explain it again. When I say the market saturation is at this price, right? So at this price in Asia, I think it pretty much, if you look at after even 20% price cut, we haven't really seen much more sales in China and Asia. And when you talk about other markets, again, I have over the last few months looked into what other markets that can support a $40,000 car. There aren't that many more. Other than the 3 major markets, China, Europe, and US, Everything else comes to very tiny numbers. That's why, like if you look at Singapore or you look at Malaysia, is it even profitable for Tesla to actually build a service center here and sell a few thousand cars a year, right? So let's if of course if you go into the software part, it's something that we have to speculate, like how much money they're going to make on that. So I don't really want to get into the speculation of that part. Elon is completely correct. If they solve FSD, this thing is going to take off like a rocket, right? Because initially, while no one else have FSD and Tesla is running robo taxis and all that, it's going to be multi-trillion dollar. But let's not assume that first. But let's just look at the hardware, the car. If you look at the car in Asia, okay, Berlin is ramping up, correct? So Berlin is ramping up to 500,000 cars. And Austin is also going to be ramping up. So you are going to have less chance for China to export to Europe, right? So what's going to happen to all the cars, the Model 3 and Y that's produced in China? Can they sell twice as many of those cars at $40,000 in Asia? Because North America is not going to need them, or you can't probably import from China. It's probably the tax is just too high, and Berlin is going to supply Europe, right? So where else is China going to export? This is where my line of thinking is, like they are going to launch the next gen earlier and take up half the space in China. This is my chain of thought that brought me to that. But now that I think more deeply into it, they may not even be able to do that even if they want to. Like Tom Zhu said, they may have to test the process first in Mexico. But if they do that, I'll be happily surprised, right? Something you can just keep your fingers crossed.
Kelvin.
Yeah, I think you touched what I wanted to say just now. I think I also don't totally agree with the fact that there is at this price point there's already reaching a certain demand level. I will actually say that there's still the market that you need to replace the ICE vehicles. So there's still demand there, albeit I do agree that Ezer said that probably at this price point, they may not be so keen to change that fast to replace their ICE vehicles. But I would say the market is still not saturated. There's still possible.
I'm talking about Asia here. What I'm saying is, I think mistaken by you too is, I'm saying that the Chinese factory, because right now the Chinese factory is exporting more than half of their production to Europe. But then Europe has Berlin. Berlin is a mega factory and they have different phases to build out. They might even go to 1 million cars, right? So Berlin is going to supply Europe. And then you just now when you say about the US tax credits and all that, that's Austin, right? So I have no worries about Austin. I'm not saying that the 3 and Y is not going to sell more cars this year or more cars next year, totally worldwide. I'm saying that in the Chinese manufacturing, Shanghai manufacturing plant, can they sell? Yeah, I just want to say that this is just purely on the Chinese manufacturing side. Can they sell all the cars they make locally? That is the question that I'm asking. And I don't see how they can, and not at this price, because even if you look at they already cut it by 20%, we're not really seeing a much higher jump this quarter in sales, right?
Fair point on Shanghai. So I think there's two parts here, right, team? I think overall, Tesla as a company globally, we're going to see more 3 and Y sales this year. I think it's almost 50%. Giga Shanghai, we need to think about what's going to do with its excess capacity, which is fair. The point that Ezer brings up. And I think most of us can agree on that. So that's why you see the 3 and Y have the lowest global pricing in mainland China compared to anywhere else in the world. Now, what else is coming?
Can I make a speculation? It's crazy. It's just completely off. Like you might call me a conspiracy theories here. I have a feeling they are purposely slowing down the RAM in Berlin so that they can continue to export from Shanghai. I have this feeling that because, like I say, otherwise, if they start making less cars in China, it's going to be a bad. It's going to look bad. What do you think? Because now we don't really have any battery constraint, we don't have any parts constraint, we don't have anything, and yet it's still not ramping up as fast as we thought it might.
I
So I
think
don't know.
I think what is happening is that car markets are very uh, different than consumer products. So it takes time to actually enter markets, especially you see like Malaysia, Thailand, each regional market has its demand, but due to the fact that there are so many regulations and tariffs and different ways of setting up the business, it's not as easy as just building a car and sending it over. So what
Mhm.
is really constraining Tesla is actually these kind of processes. So they can definitely build it up, but it's just that to go into these markets, it really needs time, getting partners and so on. So of course, they having set their footprint in China because that's the largest market that they could really tap into at the time. And as the excess capacity is now apparent, like what Ezer has said, their challenge now is actually to open up new markets. So that's
Yeah,
why
true.
you see that they come to Thailand, they come to Malaysia, and they have
I
not
was
even
actually
started
shocked
in
when I heard they come to
Indonesia
Malaysia. It's
and
such a
others.
small market. You're right. I mean, I was actually shocked. I was thinking at least another 1 year before they come here.
It is not really a small market because Malaysia sells about 20 to 30,000 BMWs, Mercedes a year. So if Tesla could tap into that, it's actually about 20 to 30. Of course, if in the grand scheme of things, you are not comparing with China and all those things, but
Mm.
Malaysia, relatively speaking, is still pretty decent. It's quite decent, and especially they need to be more. I mean, Tesla has always been sort of like not willing to bend to the whims of the local governments, but now reality will definitely hit them because uh, that's how the way works, how the world works. So
I
that's
think
why
uh, I think they will do
they have
well
to
here.
start to yeah they have to start to have a presence here to get their brand going, and then when you have a more mass volume vehicle in the $20,000 range, and then you have the markets ready, you have your demand ready. So I think that's their next phase, or I mean the short term phase that they will be doing for this year and next year.
I'll chime
I,
in
I
on this
think I
also
think you're
from
right on the. 1 second. I think you're right on the Malaysian. Because our government has reduced. I mean, has gotten rid of taxes for EVs. So I believe when Tesla set up shop here, they can sell the car at say for example, if it's $40,000, it's less than 200,000 ringgit. So that would put it in a pretty good price range. So yeah, I think you're right that they could do quite a good volume here actually. But if of course if we have the normal 100% tax, we probably won't be able to sell them.
Yes, I
Um,
agree. Then that
yeah,
is will definitely not be viable anymore
yeah,
because
correct.
it will be way more expensive than a comparable BMW or
Mm,
comparable
mm,
mid-size sedan or mid-size
yeah.
SUV. But
adding to these points.
adding to that, the new modular process that actually works
Mm.
in favor of our CKD incentives. So it actually helps. That's why they want to establish the brand, and they take the right time now since they have the excess capacity and also they have the incentive. So once the 2 years incentive is up for this kind of fully imported vehicles, I would I would say there's a very high percentage chance that Malaysia will be getting that newer gen vehicle
Yes.
after they have done that new process.
To add to these points, opening in Malaysia is not just to sell cars. There are other incidental benefits to Tesla. By opening in Malaysia, it allows Tesla to put superchargers in Malaysia, which increases the value of owning a Tesla in Singapore and Thailand
Mm-hmm,
because then owners can make road trips. So it's not
mm-hmm.
just benefiting Malaysia, it's benefiting Thailand and Singapore,
Yeah,
which
that's a good point.
destination we're
A lot
doing.
of a lot of people travel through these
Exactly.
countries. Yeah.
It also opens up the telco network, so like you'll have
Mm-hmm,
premium connectivity across Southeast Asia, like how it is in
mm-hmm,
EU. So if you drive a
mm-hmm,
Tesla from Germany to Norway, you've got a consistent connection, and this
mm-hmm.
makes the utility of owning a Tesla in Southeast Asia very significant. If Malaysia was not open, it's going to be very
Yeah,
strange for Tesla. Another
yeah.
thing, Elon Musk is negotiating with Indonesian government right now. The fact that Malaysia, both of you I mean, all of us grew up in Malaysia. The fact that Malaysia allowed Tesla to be the first fully owned foreign company, first fully foreign owned company in Malaysia, which most people thought was impossible, means that they now have more leverage when they speak to Indonesia government to say, we are also going to be a fully owned foreign company in Indonesia. And that...
I think Indonesia has more leverage in that, though, to be honest.
Indonesia
has more leverage.
Is
But
it
let's see.
is it true that we don't allow 100% own in Malaysia? Even though I'm Malaysian, I don't really know that.
For car companies, yes, we don't
Yes,
have.
I thought it's only for. Okay, so they can't, for instance, set up a Sendirian Berhad here and fully own, right? No.
Yes, you cannot have.
I know Berhad you cannot, right? Berhad you cannot. But let's say Sendirian Berhad.
Sendirian Berhad cannot, because you need to have a local ownership, local directorship.
Oh.
For cars, no.
I always thought that Sendirian Berhad, because I know some foreigners that have Sendirian Berhad that is fully owned by them. But small companies.
They have certain sectors, yes, but for critical sectors like automotive, no.
Okay. Makes sense.
Critical sectors, yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe that's why it took them a bit longer to get here, and maybe Malaysian is getting desperate. So the Malaysian government is seeing like, okay, Tesla might go to Indonesia and not come here. So yeah, makes sense. Okay,
Yeah,
I have a question for you too.
You just need to have a local director, but the shareholding can be fully foreign. So they have changed. They have made an exemption sort of for Tesla.
Actually, the worst thing that happened to Malaysia was when they introduced this 30% Bumi ownership, right? And this actually drove off a lot of foreign investment, because a lot of companies they just can't deal with all this, because basically you have to have 30% more employees than you actually need to have of all these affirmative action policies and all that. But besides the point, let's not talk so much about politics. I want to ask you a question. Tom Zhu said that they are going to be building 2 factories at the same time. I'm saying at the same time, and no, it's not going to be in any of the current factory expansion. So what do you guys think is the other factory other than Mexico? What makes sense to you?
Indonesia looks like a very strong candidate now.
What about you, Kevin?
Yeah, if you're talking about the talks being done, I would say Indonesia is a high candidate.
Remember, Tom Zhu said they were building them at the same time, So
with the talks ongoing, I would say Indonesia. But if you were to let me choose, I would say Thailand has a better chance of building a manufacturing plant, and Indonesia with more of the supply chain.
I actually agree. I really cannot see Indonesia because I think Indonesia is something that Tesla needs the nickel from, and they will eventually want to build something of a factory that maybe produce batteries and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because Indonesia, first of all, the infrastructure is not there.
Yes.
The supply chain is not there. Tesla likes to have almost 100% supply chain locally, right?
Yeah.
So right. Thailand, in that sense, makes a lot more sense. If you're talking about Asian countries, because they have so many car companies there. So Thailand makes more sense in terms of infrastructure, shipping the cars out, and all the supply chain of all the car materials and all that they can work with. Indonesia is just, if you guys have been there, I don't know if you all visited there a lot, it's still a mess infrastructure-wise, right? Yeah. So I could be completely wrong, but I think it is something that they already have decided that we don't know about. That they're going to surprise us. That the country that they're going to build it is going to be a surprise. Because anything that we know about, there are still ongoing talks, it's probably too late. Because Tom Zhu said they're going to be building them at the same time, right? So it has to be something that they already have all the paperwork done, all ready to go, and they just haven't announced it yet.
There were rumors before in Qingdao region in China also, and there's also before that there were rumors in Shenzhen area, also rumors, but about 2 years ago.
The other two markets would be Canada and also South Korea.
It could be I made a post, so it could be because Tesla has the right to buy the land adjacent to them in Shanghai. So it could be they want to build the same. Remember, I keep coming back to thinking that they would want to build a cheap car in Asia as fast as possible, and you can't do it faster than in China, right? So when they already have all the supply chain there, so I keep thinking it could be there. It could be adjacent to China, but the con is that Tesla may want to, have something outside of China, just as like a leverage. And just like they might want to have another factory in Europe and not just in Germany, and so they kind of have leverage in every location that they, so I don't know, speculation time.
Harry is saying in the chat that the China expansion was put on hold because of Starlink. There may still be a chance to bring that back. Okay, we talked about this before in the past with both of you that to me, one of the biggest risks for Tesla in China is actually not Tesla itself, but it's SpaceX. Because Starlink could be a national security risk to the Chinese government. Okay.
So you think it's just politics then?
Sometimes that's the way it rolls in our world.
Yeah. Not sometimes, most of the time. I think most of the time, unfortunately, yeah.
So I want to wrap this up with one last question. So looking at all of Tesla's plans that's been revealed for their cost reduction, what does this mean for you personally as a Tesla investor?
Ezer, go first.
Okay. Okay. Well, from the very beginning, I've been advocating that as a long-term investor in a company that you believe in, you have to look at it long-term, right? So even though I keep warning people in the last 6 months or 8 months about margins, I even talked to you about that, right? In our first video. I said, don't think Tesla can't crash 70%. That time nobody thinks it could, right? So, you have to always be careful of margins or being over leveraged or investing money that you might need in the next 1 year or 2 years. Because like I say, Tesla is also an expert in marketing, right? Tesla as a company, I see them as one of the top marketers in the world. Even though they don't do advertising, but they're really good at hyping things up and marketing. Just like they hyped up 4680 batteries, right? And then they are hyping up the Optimus, and now they're hyping up the next gen. But we actually don't know how long it's gonna take. It could take longer than, or it could surprise us. It could be faster. So as an investor, my advice has always been the same, right? If you believe in a company and you have your position well, if you think your position is okay for you, just hold on to it, right? And make sure you're not in trouble if it does crash. So basically, be careful of any situation where Tesla could crash. But long term, whether you believe the next gen is going to come in 2024 or 2025, it wouldn't really matter, right? So in the long term, it's just like a 1 year difference. But in the short term, it could crash. Like I say, what if margins is disappearing the next 1 year because they have to keep reducing prices just to sell? Because remember, they are building more and more cars, 3 and Y, and they are already saturating the Asian market at this price point again, right? At this price point. So if they have to keep reducing the price, and earlier, Darren, you asked me, can they keep reducing costs at the same rate? I don't believe so, right? You don't reduce costs that quickly without changing a lot of processes. You might, if you're talking about labor cost isn't going to be reduced, right? Electricity cost isn't going to be reduced. A factory cost is already built in. And then you're talking about material cost might go down a little bit, depending on the inflation or deflation or, all of those things. So as a long term, I just come back to just hold on to what you believe. If you believe in Tesla, just hold on to your shares. Wait till 2030, right? Write out anything that happens, because you can see that they're already planning for next gen. And I believe after next gen, they could have a next gen after that, right? So they are going to be massive. I have no, I never doubt that they could make 20 million cars. There's no doubt in my mind, because I just don't see others building as many cars in the next 10 years? I do see the Chinese building a lot of cars, right? But it's probably going to be a lot of very low cost cars and also going to squeeze Tesla margin a bit. But at the same time, I do see Tesla having a way to get to 20 million cars. So what do you think, Kevin? Are you also a long-term investor?
Yeah, from 2018.
Oh, same. We are the same then. Yeah.
Yeah, so back to what Darren is asking. So as a shareholder, right, looking at what Tesla has shown, actually what Tesla is doing actually makes it way more easier to be a long-term investor, because you are seeing numbers, you are seeing plans, and you are seeing things being done and really coming from the horse's mouth, right? It's not just from the management. I mean, not from Elon Musk, not just from the CEO. You are seeing people that are really heading their departments and doing what is being done. And you can see that they are very confident and also believe in what they are doing. So that is enough for me. I mean, if you were to compare with other companies, it is way more difficult to get this kind of information, because we are going to. I just finished watching the strategy update from Mercedes-Benz, where they updated their new Mercedes-Benz OS, and it's actually it's all fluff, to put it nicely. There's nothing concrete. There's no numbers. There's no performance. There's really no plan. I mean, they're just saying they're putting some timelines, but how are we going to? And it's all very subjective, I would say. They keep using words, like the best, the fastest or whatever. But
marketing words.
Yes, it is. Okay. From a technical point of view. I mean, from an engineering point of view, it's really nothing new.
Yeah, nothing.
And they are also contradicting themselves in that way. They say they are going to build from the ground up, and then they're going to partner. So I mean, it doesn't make sense, right? If you are going to build it, you're going to own everything. But then they say they're going to partner and they own everything. It's like, I know, it just doesn't make sense. Maybe some people will buy it, but Tesla really makes it clear. And whether it comes true or not, that's up to the investor themselves, of course. So we are trying to, put in our inputs, from our experience, what we think. And of course, the ultimate decision is to the investor or the person himself or herself to make that decision whether they believe in this company or not. But to me, after looking at the presentation and looking and also combining with what I know and what I think may happen, my conviction is definitely still there, or maybe even it's actually way more higher, knowing what I've seen recently.
What about you, Darren?
Okay, I'm going to answer this. By the way, Roger is asking us in the chat. He thinks that the first Gen 3 car is a Roadster. So all of you in the live stream, let us know what you think. You see the car on the right side there? Does it look like a Roadster to you, or it looks more like a proper compact car? Let us know down.
No, 700 million. No, but no sports car will sell 700 million. No.
Yeah. So that's probably going to be a compact car.
Probably a compact car, maybe a 2-seater city driver or something like that. Yeah.
No, it has to be a compact. It has to be a smaller car.
Yeah, but definitely not in the Roadster form factor or sports car form factor. 700 million, I don't think so. No.
Do we have any questions in the chat? I can't really see my chat.
No, that's it. I'm flagging out any questions that are in the chat. So to close this up, for me as an investor, what Tesla Investor Day has done, and also again, as Simon mentioned earlier, Elon revealing Master Plan Part 3. It gives Tesla a very clear runway on the next 10 years. The runway for the next 10 years is very clear. What Elon Musk has done is he's basically the chef who's already wrote the recipe for the next 10 years. People always say, oh, what if Elon Musk is gone? You know what happens if Elon Musk is gone? The kitchen has many good cooks. You look at restaurant chains, right? You don't need a lot of chefs. You just need one chef to create the recipe and great cooks to execute on the recipe. And you see Tesla as a great leadership team. Even if there are no chefs there, which I don't believe, I believe there's at least 1 or 2 more chefs in the whole lineup of leaders there. all you need is cooks to execute on a recipe for the next 10 years. Tim Cook executed Steve Jobs' recipe. Look at Apple. He cooked.
He cooked.
Good.
Well,
Good pun.
Darren, there aren't any cooks in Tesla.
So that's a very conservative view, right? So again, that's a very conservative view. That means if there's actually a few chefs in there, we are set for the next 10 years. And
No,
again,
I'm just joking. I'm saying like nobody named Cook. Cook in
Yes.
Tesla.
yes. And as Kelvin
Yeah.
mentioned, when he watched other car companies like Investor, it's big words, it's hyperbole. But in Tesla's one, people criticize it for being very engineering, very boring, very mundane. But the engineers who see it, they go, I see the future being built. I see the plan. And that gives me a lot of confidence.
I think I
So-
want to answer Kevin's question. Why when Mercedes talk about something and you just don't understand it, right? Because the person speaking about it also don't understand it. Because their
Yeah,
CEOs
I
are not
believe so.
their CEOs are not engineers, right?
Yes.
They probably their tech people tell them something and they just like have their PR people write something out and they just
Yes.
repeat from there and just makes no sense at all. And they themselves don't know that it doesn't make sense, you know. So I mean, I work in a factory before, and I can see that that's why I say like in the next gen manufacturing of cars, they have to be tech based. You cannot have CEOs that aren't tech based. So they are all going to go the way of Nokia, I believe. I truly believe this until they bring in a tech based, truly a software engineer to run the company, right? Otherwise, I don't think they can make it. Anyways,
Some
it
audience
was
questions.
really nice meeting up with you guys again.
Ezer, there's some audience questions. I'm not sure whether you can see it in the screen, but let me just read it out. So
Uh-huh.
Chua is asking in the chat, what's the biggest risk for Tesla shareholders? Example, if Master Plan Part 3 doesn't materialize.
I think Master Plan 3 will definitely materialize because what they're saying is they're going to go into scale, correct? So that is the Master Plan 3. Now, if you ask me something like Optimus or full self-driving, robo-taxi, those are a bit more speculative, right? Even though we can see it improving and improving, but can you get to that 99.9999999%? But if you talk about Master Plan 3, which is entirely on volume, which the way I look at it is entirely on scaling, reducing the price and volume. Yes, absolutely. I don't see any risk there because for a car that they can sell for $25,000, the demand is basically infinite. Infinite in the sense that to reach the 20 million, right? Not infinite as in sell 2 billion cars. Nobody's going to buy 2 billion cars. But if their aim is 20 million cars, then I don't see why you can't sell 20 million, $25,000 cars. I mean, the data is out there. So if the question is about this Master Plan 3, no issues. It's just whether or not it happened next year or 2 years from now, or very slow ramp or surprisingly fast ramp. That is up for debate, right? But risk-wise, no. Long-term investors, no risk there.
Thanks,
And
Ezer.
also,
I think we need to.
Okay, we'll let Ezer
Go
finish
ahead,
first.
no, I mean the only risk I can think of in terms of volume, no risk, is margin, right? That's the only in terms of from a investor perspective. Like, can the Chinese produce it at the same price as Tesla? If they can, and if they're all running on Android and Apple iOS, then where is Tesla's advantage? Eventually, if you're looking even longer term, I'm not talking like in the short term, you talk about Tesla RAM issues. In the much longer term, you have Apple and Android competition coming in and just giving up their software to every manufacturer out there. So there is, like I said, as investors, we always have to have some risk. There's always some risk. It's no risk-proof investment. Sorry, Kevin.
Okay, what I think maybe Chua was a bit not that clear is that actually the Master Plan 3 is actually to show that the Earth, we as a collective citizens of Earth, we can actually move towards a sustainable energy future. So I think that's the main message that the Master Plan 3 wants to bring forward. And then the next step is that to move towards this, achieving that sustainable future, Tesla is going to scale their manufacturing, and what Ezer said. So that is really the master plan. So then they set out their steps, which is to reduce the cost on a new vehicle, and then to sell that and to create that kind of supply that they feel that there will be demand for it. So that is that's basically what the master plan is, because they want to replace the whole fossil fuel transportation industry to battery.
Mhm.
So I think the main risk as Tesla shareholders is to look really laser focused on, will this next gen platform really bring down the cost, as they said, to 50%? I think that is the risk that we have to be careful of. Whether it will affect the share price or what, that is up for debate. Nobody knows.
Mhm.
But if they don't succeed in bringing that cost down, the master plan 3 may be in jeopardy, right? Unless another company or another visionary or another person were to take up the challenge and to replace Tesla. So that is, I think, the risk that we as shareholders have to monitor.
Thank you. I want to share a statement in a live stream by Jerry Barnes. Hello, Jerry. Good seeing you here. Jerry is saying mega packs and power walls will be huge for Tesla going forward. Actually, Tesla has been raising prices consistently every few months on mega pack. They just raised mega pack price by another 100,000 this month. So I think it's now up to 2.6 million. When it started, it was a million, 1.5 million. Zach Kirkhorn, Master of Coin, said that ongoing, Tesla investors should not just be seeing automotive margins, but seeing the total Tesla operating margins, where by this year, Tesla Energy may be 10 to 15% of their business. Right now, even last quarter, energy business is growing faster than automotive. So pausing here for some quick comments as we wrap up on Jerry's point here. What do you think, Kelvin? Ezer? Is energy still a side distraction, or it's getting more serious for you?
No, I never said it was a side distraction. It is a serious business. The way I look at energy is right now, you can command a lot of money for it. Just like when Tesla started out with the EVs, they can sell $100,000 cars, right? And then they can sell $60,000 Model Ys and trees. And now they can hardly sell $40,000 Ys and trees. So the same thing with the energy, you have to look at it in the sense that when you're at the tip of the iceberg, what are you replacing? So basically, almost everything that Tesla sells the megapacks to replace peaker plants, right? For those who don't understand, these are coal-powered or gas-powered plants that they have to turn on during peak demand hours. So, and these peak demand rates are much higher at the wholesale price compared to your normal, what they call that? I don't know. Like there's like let's say nuclear power plants, they supply energy 24/7, right? So there are power plants that supply energy 24/7. That are base load, yeah. So in the old way of saying things, you have the base loads are very cheap power. So right now, Tesla are selling batteries that are replacing peaker plants, which is very expensive. That's why they can sell the batteries for very expensive. But what happens if you want to get into a fully sustainable future? You really have to store energy for, say, a few days, right? Now it becomes massive just energy storage. You're not talking about just replacing peaker plant or stabilizing the grid. These things these big power plant companies are willing to pay through the nose for it. But when it comes to just base load kind of energy, the cost per kilowatt hour is very cheap. So at some point, we are going to see the same thing happen to the energy storage. You're going to have very high margin. To all of a sudden, you have to reduce it to such a low price. And in fact, right now, even if you sell it at no margin, you still cannot get it cheap enough to to replace or to get to a sustainable future, that the cost of battery has to keep going down. But not just our investors, who's that guy that talk about sustainable energy all the time? He did have a chart that shows the battery costs coming down, right? And I do believe that we will be able to get to a fully sustainable future. But as a business, how much profit is there? That one I don't know. But for the foreseeable future, for the next few years, it's going to be massive profit. No doubt about it.
Are you talking about Tony Seba?
Yes. Tony Seba, I'm getting old. Right. Yeah. Tony Seba has a really nice chart on the cost of battery coming down, right? As people improve the manufacturing process. Actually, we are only talking about Tesla doing next gen, how they improve the manufacturing process for the cars. But in every other industry, it's the same thing is happening. So in the battery industry, the manufacturing process is also undergoing tremendous changes. It's not just within Tesla, in everybody else. The chemistry alone, everything is going through these changes. And so Tony Seba actually has been right a lot, and I believe what he says. So in order for us to get, and Kevin is right, the Tesla Master Plan 3 is more about, can we actually get to a fully sustainable energy future? And I believe we can, because the battery prices are coming down. It all depends on the battery, because solar is already dirt cheap, right? Solar is already dirt cheap. The other equation is just the storage. So whether it's battery storage, gravity storage, or whatever kind of things they come up with, I believe we can get there, but it still will take decades. I think Elon Musk says something, we got to replace what? We got to have 300 terawatt hours of storage, something like that. And if we are only going to build 3 terawatt hours by 2030 per year, how long is that going to take? So, yeah, it's going to take a while.
Anything else to add, Kelvin?
I think we need to just know that for power pack, mega packs or mega power pack, right? This kind of products, we cannot compare it like to a consumer product, because the economics must make sense. So people are, it's not because as a consumer we have emotions and everything when we buy a car. But for this kind of power packs, I think they are the Tesla can price it in a way that it makes economic sense to the producers. So I think the Tesla is definitely has an upper hand there. Even if their margins are low, their costs are so low, they have no reason to reduce it further and pass on the savings at this moment, because of their supply constraint as well. So as long as the economics make sense, this thing will sell. And I think it's slow is also because these kind of big projects, usually you need local authorities, you need local regulations. So that also takes a lot of time. So like what Zach said, I think he said that yes, the business may show significant, maybe significant to the bottom line in the near future, but he has to also, we have to also expect that these kind of things take time.
Yeah, it definitely will take time. It just the way I look at it is the mega pack or the battery business is still constrained, right? It's still battery constrained, and it will be battery constrained for a long time, for the next several years at least, before maybe 2027, 2028. At least that's what Tony Seba thinks, that we're going to be battery constrained for the next many years. But
there's a question.
Yeah.
There's a question.
I want to add one thing that I always hear people say. I think it's just gone too far that we demonize the fossil fuel industry too much within our community. Maybe just to tone down a little bit, because if you do the math, it's still going to take decades. And if you try to force the issue, demonize any kind of red tapes that you create for them, it's going to come back and bite you. Just like we almost got into World War III because we did all this. We enrich dictators because we refuse to dig in our own backyard, and all of these policies, ESG and all this, these are all nonsense, right? Just a little bit of politics injected into this. But even as a advocate of renewables, since I was in my early 30s, early 20s, 30s, on the internet, I was already running websites talking about renewables. And even then, I'm saying you don't have to demonize the other guys because they are, you still are using energy. Third world countries need all this energy. People starve to death is force too much regulations. But for sure, capitalism, renewable energy is going to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and it's just going to win out by its own merits. You don't really have to do anything, right? Renewable energy will win out, just like Tony Siba said, it wins out by merit. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Darren, for inviting us all. It's been
Welcome.
nice.
I'm going to wrap up a couple of comments in the chat as well. So again, for oil and gas, it may disappear as a form of transportation fuel, but it's still being used even to make EVs. The plastic in your cars are made with oil. So oil has a lot of utility beyond just combustion as well. There are better uses of oil that will continue to exist for probably most of human civilization. Blink Drive, thank you so much again for the donation and live stream. So Bring is based in California. He was kind enough to introduce me to Tesla owners in Thailand. And Bring's asking like Powerwall version 3, would it come at 4680 cells or price reduction? Personally, I feel 4680 because Tesla is only making them a run rate of 10,000 cars capacity per week. They're not going to bring 4680 to Powerwall anytime soon. They're going to reserve them for the performance variants of the cars, Cybertruck, and also Semi. It may take years before 4680 comes to a Powerwall. And I don't see a price reduction or major one yet until there's credible...
Actually, they have said that their goal for the 4680 is actually right now is to go into volume production without really caring about the cost so much, right? So because they really need the volume, they need to get the process basically. Right now, like out of 1,000 battery cells you make, how many do you have to throw away, right? They need to get that process up to 99% or something, and they need to get that up. They just need to get the volume up to process, and then I think the second phase is where they'll go into the chemistry of it. Like a lot of people ask me, like, why isn't the 4680 battery performing better than other batteries? I said because that's not their focus right now. Their focus, they can't even roll the dry electrodes properly yet, right? Before needing to throw away some batteries. So they really need to get the process right before they get into the different chemistry, I think. Yeah.
I think the question, to answer the question, I think we need to know that 4680 is just a form factor and it's not really the technology of the chemistry or what kind of battery is inside. So to answer the question, will this about the Powerwall used for 4680? I think Powerwall is not so form factor dependent, right? So probably more towards which chemistry is more suitable for that kind of usage. So Powerwall is not used we use electricity at home, not at the power of a vehicle. So the vehicle has, you carry around 75 kilowatt hours worth of batteries so that we can move a heavy mass a few hundred kilometers. But at home, we are not going to use that much at the same time, right? So probably the form factor will not be much of an issue, but rather I would say the chemistry must be achievable, must fulfill the requirements of the home, and also the cost must be very competitive. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to have the Powerwall. Like for example, some countries where they have very, very reliable electricity, nobody is going to pay extra for Powerwall investment. More likely it's because they may have incentives, or maybe they will have they can sell back their power that they are stored and so on. Then they will probably buy it. So cost is a very big factor.
At this point, I think Powerwall is like a rich kid's toy. It literally costs a car, like a $15,000 car, right? If you want to get a Powerwall, that's how much it costs. So I think most people don't even bother with it. until they can get the price down like $3,000. If you can get about 10 kilowatt hour for $3,000, $4,000, then maybe people will start to get it. And that's why I actually like the idea that this reverse charging for the Teslas, especially for the Cybertruck, so that you could potentially just buy a car, and like Kevin says, how often does your power go down? In a lot of even developing countries like mine, maybe once a year, right? Once or twice a year, and only for a few hours, right? And now that day we had this entire really bad. Even the Tenaga, our power company, doesn't know what the hell happened. They couldn't fix it. So for the first hour, they couldn't figure out. And then what they did was they just bring in generators. and after 3 hours, we had generator power for the next several days, right? So the way I look at it, power walls are like, if you're really rich and you can afford it. And that's why I like the idea that if you can use your car for that 1 hour or 2 hour whenever you need to, that would be a good idea. Then I don't have to spend anything extra. I don't have to, for something that you only use once or twice a year, right?
Ezer, you should go back to Warren Redlich's channel to talk about that. He's got very strong views on the opposite side. Okay. So, for our live stream audience, I'm so glad to see there was up to about 50 plus of us here. You can find Kelvin and Ezer on Twitter. They're actually pretty active on Twitter. Their handles are literally the name here. So Kelvin.
Did I add you already, Kelvin? I cannot see your.
I think so.
Okay, good.
Add him now.
Kelvin, no, because I have to use my phone. Or you add me, I add you back.
Yeah.
I think I already follow you.
My eyes are very hard to see the tiny font.
You can find Ezer on Twitter at Ezer Ratchaga. So again, the Twitter handles are over there. Thank you so much for joining us. And I hope that everyone got something useful out of it. Let us know what you think in the comments down below. If you want to see more live streams like this, let us know how we can do better as well. With that, we're going to end a broadcast. Kelvin and Ezer will stay back with me for a brief while, but we'll see the rest of you soon. I'll be in KL again on 3rd to 6th May. Kelvin and Ezer are based in KL. So we would love to see some other Tesla investors who are based in KL as well. If you're around, just DM me on Twitter if that's something you're keen on. Take care, good night, and see you all soon. And to our friends in the United States, have a good morning.
Don't play with super glue. That's how my hand looks like now.
Live long and prosper.
Okay.